It was totally in the mix.
It was indeed in the mix because I was a complete forum rat from a really young age, and just I was in it thick from a really young age. And I heard, where did I hear? On MySpace, I'm quite sure. I heard Christian's new record on MySpace. I don't know how I heard it, and I was like, wow, it's awesome. And it was amazing to me that it came from Australia, because it was a very Detroit influenced record, and I didn't know that people in Australia were making that. So I was like, everyone's on In the Mix forum, so I was like, this guy's got to be here somewhere. So I found him, and he wasn't a heavy user, so it took him like a month to get back to me, but that's how he...
What was your handle, Claire?
Sorry, I've got a question around that though.
Yep.
So like with forums like In the Mix and Melbourne Beats that I was heavily on at the time.
Yep.
Like, do you think with like how Facebook's kind of taken over from that space now, that somehow maybe adds to the fact that there isn't such a strong electronic community in Australia anymore?
Because, okay, that's interesting, because people do talk about, okay, so the question is, has Facebook changed the sort of communal foundation of an electronic music in Australia? Because it's, you don't meet new people on Facebook, let's face it. You might meet them out, become friends on Facebook, or they're friends of a friend. It's not like going in with an alias, with some little picture of like a, I don't know what kind of avatar we all had. It's interesting you say that, because maybe Facebook and things like that are an echo chamber, and 16,000 kilometers away you don't have an online way to meet. But it's going back to the before the internet and before In the Mix. Maybe it's forcing people to meet people again, in clubs, or maybe the people that don't ever want to meet people just use Facebook. But there are Facebook groups, and I mean, let's face it, I don't know about you, Mike, but I've bought a few synthesizers off Facebook groups. How about you?
I'm all over Music Gear Nuts.
So it's maybe Facebook's a great way to meet people in certain other things, but you don't find music groups. There's a few things. There's like the Detroit Minimal Group, and yeah.
You're just not invited.
That's Ed's group, and I just noticed that the other day because he was writing something. Yeah, it's pretty big, and that's an Australian guy doing a very cool Detroit Minimal Group on the Facebook. If you want to join, then check it out. But it's an interesting thing you bring up, because I don't think in Facebook, maybe Claire, you and I would meet if I played a gig in Sydney and you were at the party, and it's like, you're into this music, whatever. But without In the Mix, maybe us sitting here today would not have happened. So it's an interesting question. But that's the nature of the internet. It's changing, it's rapid, and it opens doors to new synthesizers and and things. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, we have two. I'm going to do Senior first.
What's interesting is that I think about 100 years ago you could have had exactly the same conversation you just had, just with classical Australian composers, replacing of course some of the words according to the context of that time. And so I'd like to know, these composers would say that for them it was sort of necessary to go to Europe to have some sort of European input. And this would give them a certain advantage when they would come back to Australia with regard to the people who just stayed in Australia. But Australians would also sometimes say like, gosh, isn't that a little bit like too far away in a way that, isn't that maybe a bit too modern, a bit too, too sophisticated what they're doing now? So how is it for you when you now go back to Australia? How are you...
That's actually a really loaded question, and just to it's a really good one though. So just to repeat that, the question is it's saying that 100 years ago you could have had a similar group of people that were classical composers that said, maybe we had to come to Europe. We had to get that European input because it's important. That's where everything's happening. It's not so provincial. Are you referring to us up here as provincial people, or? You know, the internet's changed that a little bit, but maybe not as much as we think. And does it give us an advantage back home as artists and DJs here when we go and play back home? Maybe. It's. No, maybe about it. You reckon? I feel. All right. Yeah.
I think it's part of Australian appreciation of culture as an importer of culture mainly, yeah? We tend to value, I think this is changing, but it is still a thing. And it's definitely like a lot better probably than it was like 20, 30 years ago. But if you're an Australian artist and you can reach some level of success overseas, when you come back to Australia, you will be regarded differently than if you just stayed in Australia and had a greatly successful career doing maybe almost, you know, the same kind of things. But we call it the cultural cringe in Australia, where we value outside work more than Australian work. And that is breaking down, but there's still an element of it there, where if I come back from Berlin in a month, I'm going to be billed as fresh from Berlin. Yep. And if I, you know, like, and that is a selling point, it's a marketing point, and it's, people take notice of that, and it's more exciting for people because then that gives the people in Australia more of feel like they have more of a connection, and that it brings the world closer to them in a different way. So it has obviously good and bad aspects, I think, to it, you know. Yeah. But I do think it's changing, but it's a real thing, definitely.
I guess that requires people to go home though to reap the benefits of having left. I don't know about you guys. I'll ask you. It doesn't feel like some of you are coming home.
I come home every year.
No, but I mean, like, you know, to live, you know.
Long term. Yeah, I can't answer that question. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I mean, I think you're right for sure. People will bill you like that, but I do sometimes wonder if that's because you're not as available all the time as well. Like, you know, if you play in Sydney every week and then you go away for 6 months and you come back, it's like, oh, she's new, it's something different, and you know, that's a good promotional tool. I have also been, and I know other people that have been met with some resistance from time to time with the music that you bring back sometimes might not be as appropriate or as accessible or as expected from a promoter or a venue. So I think you also, when you go back, you need to make educated and smart decisions about the bookings and about what you play and about how you use the new tools and the new music or the new inspiration that you get while you're away, for sure. But yeah, it's definitely an advantage, I agree completely, but yeah, to be taken carefully, I think. But about moving back, yeah, I don't know.
Depends which family members are listening, right?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, how exotic, are you in Berlin?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's it. How exotic are we in Berlin? That's interesting, because one thing I wanted to talk about tonight, but I thought it wasn't as yeah, look, most of my friends here that live here or come from other parts of Europe, they're like, why? I mean, you were playing great big gigs back home. I played great gigs with you. You were running great gigs. You DJ'd at great gigs. You were playing a live set at a great gig. What on earth are you doing here? It's minus 10 degrees. Everyone wants to, you know, like buried themselves in a corner of their, in misery. It's cold. It's horrible weather in winter. What are you doing here? You've got beautiful weather. You've got a relaxed lifestyle. I think it goes back again to this thing with the classical composers. It's like you want to be in the thick of it. You want to experience what it is to be where the cool stuff comes from, where the more sophisticated music, where those labels, where the things that you've been collecting and spending money on all your life, where are they from? And maybe you just want to be a part of that for a few gigs, for 5 years. I mean, maybe maybe some of us are going to be here for a lot longer. Who knows? So it's kind of a burning question, actually. What has anyone actually been here a full winter though?
Yeah.
One. Yeah. I have to admit I've never done a full Berlin winter. And there was one question as well. Oh no, here we're going to do. Yep.
I'm James.
Hi, James.
I moved here 4 years ago as well, like you guys.
Yep.
And I met Claire about 2 years ago.
Any about my garden?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I've just been back to Australia after living 2 years, I'm originally from Perth, but moved to Sydney when I was 10, and I was telling Claire about how shit Sydney had become.
Could you just repeat that word? So we've got. Yeah.
Claire was probably the first person that actually sort of fought me on that. I don't know if you remember what he said, saying how good Sydney used to be, and that there was still hope. And I've been back since, and I think the only fresh air was hearing Simon on FBI.
Yeah, look, that's another skill there. Another part of that, like that, you know, that's Simon's got a weekly radio show in Sydney that's kind of cult in a way, I would say. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. But
I've got
the question, oh yeah, okay.
Does anyone here think that there's any hope for Sydney and Australia in general, coming back to life?
I'm going to repeat the question because it's a great one. Is there any hope in general for Sydney and Australia coming back to life?
Exactly. And having the lax laws that Claire was talking about for the party that she recently had, is there any hope?
I personally would like to see Simon as the Mayor of Sydney.
So we're going to put this on record now. Simon Corwell, future Mayor of Sydney.
No way. So the question was, is there any hope left for Sydney? Well, there's definitely lots of hope left for Sydney. It's a tough time, right? And when you compare things here with things there, it's more difficult. So we've had these lockout laws in Sydney where you're not allowed to enter a club after 1:30 in the evening, and most clubs in the centre of the city have to close at 3 a.m. Which is obviously a massive problem, you know, in all sorts of aspects of the industry. But all it has done really in the last 3 years then is to force people to find creative ways of still putting on parties. People still want to put on parties, people want to go to them, people want to play at them. And so there's a lot more warehouse parties, there are underground events, which, you know, hold their own problems, but there's a whole young crew of kids who refuse to have that sort of taken away as a possibility for them, and that we will always find ways to get around it, whether they're legal or illegal, you know, we will find ways to do it. And it's literally, if the authorities are forcing people to do more illegal things, we just have to find a way to do that in a smart way where people don't get hurt, you know, which is the main consideration. But there's no lack of desire of people in Sydney for hearing music, and it's the most depressing part is that people keep saying how shitty it is, and then people start believing. People sort of becomes a self-perpetuating thing, right? Sydney's crap. I'm just going to move to Melbourne, or
Berlin.
Yeah, sure, totally. But I think there's plenty of hope, you know. I think these come. Being involved in the industry for a long time, you see there's a lot of cycles and things come and go and change, and there's always going to be that desire for people to do things. So we'll be all right.
There's hope. Okay, 2 questions up the back. Would you be able to?
Yeah, sorry. I'm not an Australian, I'm German, and I'm not a DJ. I run a rental company here. I've got lots of questions, but 2 important for me. There's one thing coming to my mind, it's drugs. Sorry, that's a bit away from classical music.
Yeah.
What's the situation in Australia for drugs compared to Berlin? Don't you get to party?
Okay.
They're too expensive.
Yeah, so that's really topical, and obviously it's for every person it's a very difficult question to answer. I think the thing is yeah, you have late night clubs. Okay, there are going to be people that choose to do that. There are people that choose to do it at home. There are people that choose to do it at work. There are people that are working in every facet of life that are exposed to or do drugs. I think the thing is with late night culture, it's very obvious because you have people channeled into one place. It's very easy to put sniffer dogs outside a festival and say, okay, there's going to be people here that have fun now, and some of those people are going to choose to do a recreational drug or whatever. Maybe part of that in Australia is we have a lot of big festivals. I think it really hurt the club scene a lot. People were more prepared to spend a lot of money on a ticket in Australia to one festival, and that was their big night of the year. And if they chose to do something of an illegal nature for added fun or whatever it was that they're doing, they're going to do it at that festival. It's very easy for the media and the police to target that festival, and it created a culture around it so that most festivals would have sniffer dogs, this, that, and the other. It's a media. It gets used in different ways. It's not. It's just slightly different than Germany. I mean, there's similar laws in place. Yeah. Okay. Berlin. It's the same though. I mean, police are still involved. You know, there are laws still in place. I just think that the culture and attitude from the regular person on the street is a bit more relaxed here, and in Australia, it is. Not even talking about drugs here, just talking about personal liberties and freedoms and what people do in their own time. In Berlin, people don't give an SHIT what people are doing in their personal time. They let them have their space. They govern themselves. If they choose to do something, that's their thing. I find a little bit back in Australia that it's different. People are more judgmental, I would have to say, in those with those topics and issues. Yeah.
At the moment in Melbourne, there's a police operation called Operation Safe Night, and according to them, they are making people safe by having sniffer dogs roaming up and down the main nightclub district and pulling people out of the line. So they're not looking for drug dealers; they're looking just for drug users and pulling them out if they're, no matter how well behaved they are, they're choosing to target them, and it's been running all winter, strangely. It's completely for the tabloid newspapers to have something to. They actually station photographers outside a club where I play every week, looking for a footballer coming out who's high or something, and it's completely. It's about selling newspapers and also the police appearing to be doing something about a drug problem that may or may not exist.
Yeah, I think you just said the word, Emma. It's sensationalised. It's sensationalised a lot more in Australia.
Second question, only because of Berlin and that rental company, what can we do better in Berlin? So now that you are grown-ups,
yep.
For a few years and run companies like Party and then DJ in Australia and somewhere else, what can we in Germany, in Berlin, do better that you have in Australia already?
Better. No, actually, even better. Better beer prices. What do they do better here? Look, there's some crazy sound systems in this city. There's some. Oh, what you could do better? Okay, what could you
coffee.
do better? Well, yeah. No, look, you gotta know where to go. It's not like in Australia where you can go into any cafe and go, I'll have a cafe latte and it's made, perfectly. With the party, I think I'm going to say one thing. How many Germans and people that were born in Berlin are in Australia practicing electronic music, and how many are from Australia in Berlin practicing electronic music? I think it's done better here. I think there are things that maybe could be done better, but I'm not the person to say that, I'm really not. I've had some interesting experiences here. I don't know, does anyone else want to answer that one?
Friendly bar staff?
Yeah, that's one. Just smile, if someone's been playing a 4-hour DJ set at 4 o'clock in the morning and they've got a drink card, which means that they're entitled to a free drink, and they're really tired and their ears hurt and there's no friends left because it's such a silly hour, just a small smile, just some human bonding, something going on, because I've had a few experiences where it's like, I'm going to go home now because I feel like the world hates me. So maybe that's it. Just crack a smile. You're doing a good job right now, so... One more. Hi, Kat.
We were talking before about this sort of influx of Aussies coming to Berlin, and of course we're seeing an influx from a lot of other European countries, or also like Brits and Americans coming here because they work in the music industry. How do you foresee the long-term effect of so many people coming here? I mean, we're already seeing like rental prices and stuff are going up, and some things are changing that normal Berliners would not be normally able to afford anymore, or things are changing for them. But how do you feel like it's going to change for people working in this space when more and more people are coming here and competing for gigs and so forth?
That's a very good question. I mean, I would say this is like the most highly competitive city for electronic music in the world, period. How have we as creative migrants coming here for slightly cheaper rent compared to Sydney or Melbourne, are we directly forcing people out of their homes? I don't think so. I think there are people, if we look at the whole creative spectrum, yes, definitely. I think obviously Prenzlauer Berg 10 years ago used to be a very different neighborhood, and now Neukölln is changing quite rapidly. That's a tough one. I mean, what was Hollywood like before the movie industry? It's a tough one. If people are coming here and sacrificing to pursue something creatively, they have a different struggle. There are people coming here that are probably a little bit more what we might consider a yuppie and chewing up some floor space so that people can't live. Will it become more competitive? It's quite possible. I don't know what anyone else thinks. Does anyone else want to have a quick response to that one?
Well, I guess, I don't know, I speak sort of semi-short term, really. I've been coming to Berlin like 7 or 8 years, so not as long as you guys, but I guess it's like any capital city and somewhere where, like, there's a big tech scene here. It's not just music creatives, it's creatives from across the board coming here right now. And yeah, who knows where it's going to be in 5 years, but if you think about other big cities like, New York or London or these big international hubs that people have migrated to for whatever reason, they just sort of keep growing for a while anyway, and we stay as long as we can, and then maybe people will move to Lisbon or Poland or somewhere else where it's cheap.
Leipzig.
Yeah.
Can I just? Yep. Yeah, I think it's more than just the electronic music scene, like you say, and also just the history of Berlin. I mean, coming here in '98, it was a totally different place, right? So it was always going to be an evolving city after the wall came down, and so while it is a massive part of it is the electronic music industry, like it is all the other creatives as well. It's, there are Germans moving here as well as people from Australia and
totally
else as well. So I think
Swabia,
it's
I believe.
Part of the evolution of Berlin, really, which has got a long way to go still. It's like still, you can still feel that it's still, changing from that time. So I think it's got a course to run still.
Isn't the other way to look at it, it's cross-cultural exchange, isn't it? Part of what
Totally. But I think the interesting thing what Kat brought up, at what expense? What inherent culture is the new creative scene in Berlin displacing? I agree, but it's always an...
Not always taken, they've given, people pay taxes here too, but we pay taxes, all of us. So there's a lot being put into this culture as well. You can say rents are going up, but we're also paying a lot of money to be here too.
Yep, definitely.
And it's much bigger than that. Yeah.
If I can just jump in,
Yep.
I was thinking more though, just like as an artist, and you're coming into a more competitive space as more and more people are coming in. I totally agree with the things you're saying about it when we're talking broadly about all kinds of people coming into Berlin, but I was thinking more just because we're talking about electronic music, about how that will evolve and develop as becoming more
It's hard to track. I mean, I still think maybe it would have been better to come a bit earlier because it's pretty wildly competitive. I mean, you have to stake a claim.
I mean, I think you can apply the thought you could have come earlier to any situation in any decade, in any industry, I don't see a problem with it becoming more and more competitive. I know personally when I moved here, my standard had to jump up really quickly or I was not going to get any work here because it is a different standard because the best people in the world are here, and they're all fighting each other for. I mean, the pool is huge here comparatively compared with other cities, but it's still, compared with the number of artists here, it's small, and you have to be good. And I think it's great that when you come here, it's so competitive and it shocks you in a way that Australia does not shock you. It's just so vast here. People are so good, and it just, I think it's a good thing. It's good for your development, and it's good to take it home too. I know that everyone is proud to go back to Australia with what they've done here, and like spread that love. And people come here for the summer. Like Renee is here at the moment to do a great tour, doing huge festivals and really great gigs, and that feeds back. So yeah, it's a good thing. Competition's good, just as long as everyone's nice.
One last thing then. Is there any questions actually? Quickly. Okay, one, Rach. Okay, we're going to do the couple of words, but just before that, one thing that you said yesterday, Mike, is like, what did it feel like to you that first time when you played at Watergate here 10 years ago? That's interesting.
Yeah, so in 2007 I played, it was my first European gig, and when I got here, I said to you yesterday, I felt like I was at the Olympics. It was like this incredible achievement, and I was working towards something, and I was like, I don't think it can get better than this, you know, and it was an amazing experience. And now, you know, it's just human nature, I guess. It's less like the Olympics, and it's a bit more, the shine comes off, and it's work or whatever. And as Claire said, it's very competitive, but it's a good thing. But there is the danger of what a big part of this city's charm for artists is the ability to survive financially. And one thing I can tell you is that from my experience, the payment for your services in this city is quite low. It's definitely, for me, it feels
compared to the average
low.
elsewhere. Yeah.
Whereas when I go home, I can, there are more. You could say there are more good players here, so it brings your game up. But there's also a marketability for taking a skill, having a skill at home where you can just really kind of, you know, make a living from it. So that's my experience.
Yep. There you go. So let's do the 2 words. Berlin.
Should I start with me? I need to think.
I get to do the easy ones because I'm first. Inspiring, and I'll come back for my second one.
Danke schön.
Dankeschön. It's tough, but it's exciting.
Enormous hangover.
Pleasant chaos.
Whoa. Pleasant chaos.
Oh, I think time. I have more time here than I ever had in Australia to do stuff.
And there you have it, folks. Thank you very much.